with. It's fucking Bell.
It's fucking Bell indeed.
I guess that's not the good enough intro for anything. This fucking bell.
This fucking Bell. Good
Yeah.
evening.
Oh, go ahead, David.
No, yeah. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of Thunderdome Metal Reviews, your church for all things heavy metal. With me, as always, are the Reverend Ben Lindsay. How are you, sir?
And I'm doing pretty great, all things considered.
Indeed. So Ben has had what we're going to call times. Also with us, as always, is Tracy, the Don't You Dare Touch My Spreadsheet Newport. How are you, Tracy?
Doing pretty good. Doing pretty good. Do a very Bobby Hill defense of my spreadsheet.
He's throwing shit. Also with us is featured artist Gabriel Cooper. Gabe, how are you this evening, sir?
I'm good. How are you?
Representing death metal till I die, I guess. So tonight we're not going to be talking about death metal exactly. I guess we're going to be talking about, would you say, Doom Death?
Yeah, definitely Doom Death.
Definitely
Yeah,
Doom Death. Hooded Menace. What is it? The Tritonus spell? Is that how you say that?
Tritonus.
Tritonus. Oh my god, I didn't turn my pretension filter up high enough. The Tritonus bell. I'm sure Ben has some, or Tracy, somebody much smarter than me has some information about this album.
I do, put together by Tracy Forrest this time.
Bam.
It's the Tritonus Bell, released on 8/27 of 2021. There's 6 studio album all around. Recorded at Horus Sound Studios, SF Sound Studio, The Underground Crypt, and Sonic Train Studios. The label is Season of Mist, produced by Hooded Menace and Andy LaRocque. Runtime of 47 minutes and 40 seconds. I am going to butcher the names, again, because I do not speak Finnish. Harry Kokkonen on vocals, Lasse Pico on lead and rhythm guitars and bass and keyboards, Timu Hananen on rhythm guitars, and Pekka Koskelo on drums.
To our Finno-Ugric listeners, I apologize at our inability to fake anything not Indo-European. We can barely handle English, some of us on Thunder Metal Reviews, so
yeah,
apologies.
For sure.
So why did you pick this?
Really, it looked like when I was trying to pick an album that came out in August, the majority of the stuff was re-releases.
Indeed.
Or stuff that I didn't necessarily want to listen. So I saw the name Hooded Menace, which I had not heard before. And being an American from the South, I was like, Hooded Menace, that could be problematic. So I did a quick Google search, and it didn't seem to be problematic. So I was like, fuck it, let's try it. But lo and behold, perhaps it is problematic, just not the way that I necessarily thought.
So how has that been? How did it turn out to be potentially problematic?
And I'm going to forget, and maybe Gabe, David, Tracy, maybe one of the three of you remembers the Twitter handle of the person who I think it's Noob something or other.
Yeah.
Anyway, there was a tweet that was sent out after this album was released and was getting rave reviews, and it was getting a lot of mainstream press, mainstream metal press.
Yeah.
And still is. And they released a tweet saying, hey, Hooded Menace may not be a fascist band, but one of their members is in another band that is potentially a fascist band and is on a fascist label. So, yeah.
Thus began a lot of Google searches, talking
Indeed.
to Buck, who we've also had on Thunderdome Metal Reviews many times,
Yes.
who knows a lot more about this shit than we do. Buck also bothered to listen to the albums in question and did a FBI profiler level analysis. And Buck thinks, and this is not me passing the buck, pun intended, that it seems to be Nazi-free. But all joking aside, I think it's good we're taking this seriously. I don't want to endorse that shit. And a lot of metal, maybe a bit more in Scandinavia, has a National Socialism problem. It's like a subscene of black metal that I think has very little effect on, I almost said mainstream black metal, original black metal, but is absolutely a thing with an entire universe of its own merch and websites. And that, I guess, shouldn't be a surprise given the popularity of actual white supremacy in some of these societies, like our own, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, that's just it. I was looking at it from an American white supremacist lens, because, again, of the name evocative of the Ku Klux Klan, it doesn't appear to have that. And we have to remember not to defend this or National Socialist Black Metal, because fuck those guys. But
Indeed.
metal as a general rule, much like punk before it, and just general rock, has tended to use very shocking images. Lemmy was investigated by the German government for promoting one of their tours by wearing an SS officer's hat on promotional posters. If those of you who are eagle-eyed will notice that Tom Araya is in the background of our PowerPoint tonight. You know, Angel of Death is not exactly taking the Nazis to task in that song, and that became very popular. One of the guitarists for Cannibal Corpse, whose name escapes me, actually recorded a song for a white supremacist band. He later claimed he didn't know that they were white supremacists, and they paid him, he added very poorly, to lay down a guest track. So who knows? We will continue to monitor the situation, and needless to say, if we find out that there is National Socialist leanings with this band, if they ever act out on it in any way, of course, we will add them to the list, much like we did Ice Earth after they committed treason, or the lead singer committed treason.
Bringing it right
Ice
back to our
Earth,
home soil.
We never
Cancel.
touched on it, but I was looking at doing a Ecclesiastes last year around the time for our albums of the month or whatever, and that was one that turned up being they were Nazis because they were known short sunning or whatever. I don't know if that-
Oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah, because they had the black sun as their band logo.
Yeah, so
Fuckers,
it's like,
yeah.
oh, I don't know about you guys.
Yeah.
Sorry, not sorry.
That's how it goes. Shifting the conversation slightly, I want to point out that this font is a hot mess.
It's a super hot mess.
Hey,
Gabe,
that's
you hadn't said
the
anything. I
death
want to
metal
give
in
you a
them. That's
yeah,
the
that's
death
for
metal
sure.
in them.
But Gabe, do you have anything that you want to add to?
Yeah, please.
If you can't read it, it's not death metal, right?
Indeed.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I think I was the one who kind of retweeted
Alerted,
whatever
yeah.
I found to our chat, and it was kind of alarming to me. But again, it's not something that should surprise anybody because these things do happen, and you know, I can only sort of reiterate or add my voice to what has already been said, in that, you know, we don't support that kind of shit, and we won't support that kind of shit. So
Right.
if there is any evidence that will lead us to believe that these suspicions are, you know, true or valid, we, you know, we will cease promoting the band in any way.
Yeah.
And I mean, you know, outside of having to stream the album to listen to it, which is something that many of us have to do when we do review a record, I'm not going to be, you know, supporting the band. So,
I mean, if it's something similar to what I had in Ice Earth, I have dropped them off everything. Anytime I come across them, I'm like, nope, fuck you, and like delete them off any playlist I find them on. Because they're, you know, there's a 12-year history, decade plus that I've been listening to them. So it's just kind of like going through the hard to go in and kind of filter everything out. And I refuse to give them a penny.
I met Hooded Alice in an alley yesterday, so it's a bit of a different situation. No, I know what you're saying, because Mr. Warner and I go way back, and a ton of my playlists have his shit, and goddamn him for being who he is. So that's probably closer for me in terms of how painful. I mean, but whatever, it isn't about me at all. Fuck him. So,
well, yeah, I mean, that said too, I just want to add that, like, I found out that information after I'd already heard the album, you know, a couple of times. So
Same, yeah.
my impressions here are as unbiased as they can be, given what I already know. So
Yes, I am going to judge the album on what I feel is the quality of the music and the musicianship, because you can be a Nazi piece of shit and still produce good art. Just I'm not going to support it once I find out that you're a Nazi piece of shit. And you know, I do not know whether anybody in this band is, but that is something, and I have yet to see at the time that we record this any of the more mainstream outlets that wrote reviews for this or mentioned this band tackle the controversy. That doesn't say that it is not true, but at where we stand right now, we just don't know. But we thought we owed it to you, the listeners, to make you aware of this, since we're talking about this band. And to paraphrase, well, not Joey Belladonna, God damn it, Jello Biafra. To paraphrase Jello Biafra, Nazi metal can fuck right off. So,
Brother Jello's right.
yeah.
So let's talk about the work of art we have before us, that notwithstanding. Who wants to talk about their first impressions? Because I guess it's new for all of us, it sounds like.
It was, yeah, it was new for me. I'm just going to say it, and like I got a lot of Paradise Lost vibes on this. Like,
Same.
if it wasn't for, if they had a dude that could sing clean vocals, I would almost think these guys probably started off as a Paradise Lost cover band, you know,
Sure.
like, because there's like I could see this being in any of the albums, like removing the vocalist. I could see the guitars, bass, like everything arranged in there showing up on a Paradise Lost album that we listened to a year ago. Like fit right in there, no questions asked. Would even be like, oh, I wonder, is this actually Paradise Lost? No, I'd be like, it's Paradise Lost.
I got a little bit of a Paradise Lost vibe. My Paradise Lost vibe wasn't that strong, partially because of the vocals, but it did. I definitely see the comp, especially the more heavier Paradise Lost. But it also kind of reminded me a little bit of Morbid Angel.
It reminded me of Cerebral Rot a lot, because Cerebral Rot's at this tempo as well. But
Yeah.
we just drew a Venn diagram of Morbid Angelness, essentially. Yeah, no, there's definitely Morbid Angel here. If you, as Morbid Angel themselves sometimes do, turn the tempo down.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Morbid Angel at doom death speeds. I could see that. I don't think this vocalist is as good as David Vincent, but I will say that about nearly any death metal vocalist because I'm an asshole.
But he's not a bad vocalist either, though.
He's not. No. I am not saying that either.
Yeah.
Calmer than you are, Ben.
So I didn't go through the Paradise Lost trip with y'all, but
the Odyssey we went on.
You missed some fun.
You did.
Missed a
And
lot
some
of
what I
fun.
was-
badness, too.
what I was thinking about, I mean, one thing that I did hear is a little bit of King Diamond. And what I wanted to ask you guys, because you have heard more of this stuff, is this band successful as kind of a retro project? Because that's what it seems to me to be.
I always
Even,
ponder that. Yeah, for sure.
like, I mean, do they channel these things alone, or are they doing something different? Right.
Not to nominate someone, I feel Tracy's the one who thinks about that the most, because Tracy's into some weird, he's not denying it, some weird retro shit and some nowtro shit and futuro shit as well. So Tracy, what timeline is this from?
Is that futuro shit a shot towards something we're doing later tonight?
We will talk about that in about 45 minutes. Anyway, yes. Is this retro? Is it successful retro? What's happening?
So for me, the era of Paradise Lost is in my head that this lined up in was that Fate Divides Us, Death Unites Us arc.
So that's only like five years ago. Yeah, that's 2016.
No, Death Unites Us, or Fate Divides Us, Death Unites Us is like the mid 2000s.
I don't think so, brother.
It is.
No, I have to prove you wrong, or I will die. I'm gonna
I don't fucking remember when that came out, but I loved that album.
But
I'm
anyways,
gonna tell you.
David can find out for us. But this album reminds me a lot of that sound and the albums around it where they came out with their more doomier, slower stuff. And then when they were starting to lean into their later 2015s and 2009.
You and I are both wrong, which is the perfect answer. It's 2009.
Yeah.
So you were like you and I were on either side of it. Yeah, I
Yeah.
guess 2015 is. We listened to so many of those albums. In my defense,
did.
I think that was like Tragic
The Plague
Idol.
Within. The Plague Within is 2015. But yeah, Fate Divides Us is 2009. The
And
year
so
I
this-
met my wife.
This reminds me of that era player Paradise Lost, and to where they haven't quite fully stepped into their slower stuff like you see with Medusa and Obsidian, but they haven't exactly stepped away from their faster stuff that you saw in the early 2000s. And as for these guys, I don't want to say it's purposefully like retro. I think it's more of just an amalgamation of their sound. And because they do have this doominess in there, has this heavier, it's like this death doom. And I think it's more that that's the sound they're going for, and less that they're doing it specifically to be like retro. Because there are bands out there that are like, we want to sound like they did in the 80s, down to the production. And it, that's part
Okay, I don't think this is one of those. That's why I asked you. I know you
No.
listen to the gamut of metal in general and have a handle on this. Don't you think the art is very retro? That may be just because of my tech death love. I'm like, I don't know, this is very retro, this cover. Like, I am definitely playing D&D.
Like, it's not your typical like modern day death metal cover art. I'll give it that.
I mean, it was in 1988.
Yeah, I think that the
like
album art is very much a throwback, but I didn't really think that the sound necessarily was.
Mhm.
And I wonder how much of that King Diamond sound is the fact that Andy LaRocque cut his
Indeed.
teeth on King Diamond, and that transferred over. I had never heard of this band before, but in doing some of the research after the National Socialist thing came up, you know, I watched some other people talk about them, and this is apparently an evolving sound that they have had. Is this doom death thing? This is, like I said, this is their 6th album, and apparently they've gone through various iterations of this. So how much of it is a planned necessarily callback, or just how the main guy in the band is processing his relationship with doom and death metal and combining the two forms? I can't say.
More research is required.
Yeah, and you brought up Cerebral Rot earlier. This is a little bit different than Cerebral Rot because these guys aren't like, and it may be that they're not as in on the joke, or they're not in on the joke as we talked about with Cerebral Rot, to where they made it a sense to sound as putrid and vile as they did. Well, on here, I don't think they're necessarily like targeting that, and I think that putrid and vileness kind of added to like special sauce to the Cerebral Rot album that I think this one doesn't have, but also I don't think it would sit within the mix either.
Agreed. I think this takes itself much more seriously than Cerebral Rot, but
too.
not in a bad way.
Yeah, I mean, I also think they're just very, very different bands. I think David made the comparison in terms of the tempo.
Indeed.
Which I totally see. The other thing was that, you know, they do get slow, but at some points, I don't think they get slow enough.
Sure.
Which it's maybe just a weird taste thing on my part, but
you need to hear Chemist. That's what you need to hear.
Well, yeah, but also just because like the first some of the first metal that I got hooked on was doomy stuff and just excruciatingly slow. And maybe someday I'll treat you guys to a band that doesn't do excruciatingly exclusively, but this band called
you say Sun O, I know you know.
No. I was gonna say it's a band called Horsefang, who are from Charlottesville, Virginia. And anyway, so I liked a lot of stuff I liked some of the stuff that I heard that was very slow. And anyway, I was coming to this thinking like, okay, some of the slower moments could be even slower, right? You know, you even can think that coming from Cerebral Rot, where they really do it. You know, they can run the gamut.
Yeah, they did slow down to that tempo. I, in general, am not a fan of it, and I make fun of Ben, who in turn makes fun of me. When it gets that low tempo, part of it is how I engage with metal. I'm like, I'm working out, I'm punching shit, I'm flying a plane, and then it's just like we're doing lewds. I don't know, but I have been convinced now that Thunderdome is like Clockwork Orange me, like put me in a chair and put droppers in my eyes and made me like listen to a bunch of shit. When done well, I accept that it's kind of awesome. And I would, you know, just to sort of give away, I don't think this is the best album ever, but it's pretty good. Like this is a good record. I know why people are raving over it. I was annoyed when I thought they might be National Socialists.
Like, so was I, dude.
I was like, God damn it, again. Son of a
Yeah.
bitch. Because I don't actually like Iced Earth. Like, but I like this band, or at least what I've heard one album. I like this. Sorry, go ahead, Ben.
No, I was just going to say, I completely agree with everything you just said. And the tonality, that first, 30 seconds on the opening track, just the tone of the guitars and everything, that did seem a little bit retro to me. But I was like, man, this is so good. And it's been so long. Yeah, dude, it's been so long since I've heard something like this. And maybe it really hasn't. It just felt like it had been a long time since I'd heard something like this. And I just was like, hell yeah, I'm going to like this album, I think. Sometimes the first 30 seconds of a song lies to you, but in this case, it did not.
I think the last time we did something like even in this vein was the Paradise Lost stuff we did last year, because I don't think we've ever gone back since then into anything more Doom.
But definitely
Kinda.
not Doom Death. We've done some other Doom since
We've
then.
done
I
other
think.
Doom, but
Yeah.
not Doom Death.
Well, we did.
Well, we've done some female vocalist Doom
We
stuff.
did the King, Woman, and Ember.
Yes, precisely. Anyway, but this, all genres aside, I know metalheads do this. Genres aside, it is a good record. They really can play their instruments. The mix, I mean, you know, Andy LaRocque is a master. Like, the mix is quite good. I think that's where some of that King Diamond is coming from, because that's that whole European lineage, that European metal sound lineage thing coming through as I make my torso disappear. So
That's so death metal.
that's fucking death metal, right? I just
Sacrificing
vanished.
yourself. But yeah,
Anyway, yeah,
I was going to say, you brought up a good point. The mix for this is just fantastic,
it is.
because instead of it all just kind of reverbing in together, that everything is separated out enough that you can hear them within the mix, that you're not just hearing this just glob, just, you know, heading down the, like, just mainlining like a glob of sound. It's the drums, the guitars, and the bass, even, it's all sitting distinctively within the mix, to where none of it's just this distorted mess.
Yeah, it's a little low on reverb. It's a bit more like the Rasmussen Justice for All production. I guess some of us are reading an article about that last night, where it's like drier and crisper and you can hear all the sounds. Rasmussen is Danish, right?
Yes.
Yeah, it's
I
I
believe
don't want to, again, conglomerate everything, but I feel like there is a European tradition of how production often sounds, with Britain being its own thing. Anyway, it's well produced, and they really can fucking play their instruments. That's for damn sure. What album is this? 6?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it shows. It's interesting. It's not, sometimes this happens on the show. I think it's been a bit since I've jumped on a band who I'd never even heard of that was this far along in their career.
Yeah. Same. It does happen every now and again, and it almost invariably is a European band. But yeah.
Oh, Children of Bodom. That's what it was for me when you hit us, and I thank you for that with Death. Was it Death Crew and Roll? What is that one?
Hey Crew, Death Row.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Hey Crew, Death Roll. That's it. What do you think, Gabe?
I was I mean, I was enjoying it, you know what I mean? Like, I also thought it was a pretty good record. And I think, like I mentioned before, there are points at which I thought it could have been even slower. And I think one of the hallmarks of successful Doom is being able to work with the tempo, and not just playing slow, but building up tension through playing slow and through developing melody, which I think they do successfully a lot of the time, not all the time, but they do it some of the time. So yeah, like, I didn't have as much of the, you know, I didn't get as many illusions, you know, the throwbacks to you know, Paradise Lost or Candlemass or whoever they're channeling here. But I did like what I heard. So
All right. Shall we talk about songs?
Yeah, let's freaking do it. I love that we have this on the screen. Otherwise, I'm like moving tabs around. It's good shit. Who wants to go first? Maybe Tracy.
Let me pull them up. I think it starts off extremely well. That's outside of the opening, but through Chime, Diabolicus, Blood Ornaments, and Those Who Absorb the Night, I think is a great 1, 2, 3 to get in. Corpus Asunder is all right. And even Scattered in the Dark. I was not a fan of the last two, though. Instruments of Somber Tonality and The Torture Never Stops. Those two were my least two favorite tracks on the album. So, like, the first 35 minutes is great, and then it hits this back to it, just kind of leaves a sour taste in my mouth at the end of it.
I am less harsh on the back end, so admit Instruments is only meh. I thought Torture Never Stops was okay. I do concur, though, that I don't usually like intros that much, but this one was very Halloweeny and scary, so it worked. But Chime Diabolicus is good. I really like Blood Ornaments a lot. That would be my favorite song on here. Those Who Absorb ... Corpse Asunder. That, I'd say, like 2 through even 6. I like Scattered into the Dark. It's really solid. It's most of the album, as you say.
Yeah, Chthonic Exordium I really enjoyed, even though it is just an instrumental, but I thought it flowed into Chime Diabolicus very well. Blood Ornaments, you know, Do you remember, Tracy, who did the Torture Never Stops, the original?
I don't, but I can look it up.
Yeah, please do. Because I thought it was an okay cover. I don't hate instruments of somber finality. I mean, the back end did not leave a bad taste in my mouth at all. I will say that it may not have been as strong as the first half, but man, that first half of the album is
So
very,
good.
very good.
It's boss.
Yeah,
Frank Zappa is the one that did the cover.
for example. So that is a bold choice to do.
It really is. No, it's a
Yeah.
Zappa song.
Yep. So I will give them all kinds of kudos for that. For those of you listening at home, it appears that we have lost Gabe for a moment. So we are going to pause and see if he can come back with us. And I'll just pause sharing, not actually pause the recording. So never mind.
I said something was muted. He's like, and we're back. Blah 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 blah. I just
saw you gesticulating and whooping. I assumed it
That's all I
was
saw you doing too.
an ancient ritual.
Touchdown.
it's good.
It's
I
cool.
don't think I've ever actually heard the original Torture Never Stops, but I was not a fan of that fucking cover. Like that
No,
was not
that's-
at all.
Probably because of your time spent in the Chicago penal system.
Could be. I'm not sure that you would be a big fan of Zappa, honestly.
I feel Gabe looks just the tiniest bit white supremacist adjacent with that
It's
haircut.
just like a little
Just
Hitler
Just the
youth.
littlest bit. I'm like, is he a hipster or a white
Guys.
supremacist?
Well,
Guys,
hey,
they
took it from him. They took it from him. That's what it is.
I think they took it from you. No, it's actually an awesome haircut, but they fucking
Yeah.
ruined it too.
They did. They
Fucking
sure
Richard
did.
Spencer.
Fuckers.
Well, I mean, look, this is also the story of Nazis. They don't have any culture of their own, and they
Very true.
appropriate everything else so that they can look like everybody else and put their like shitty ideas in it. Like, you know,
Indeed.
this is like a very,
For sure.
a very it goes back to the beginning of Nazis.
To give me a tale as old as time, song as old as
Yes.
rhyme, the Nazi and the Beast. I'm here all week, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, we're all back. Everyone's here.
Sorry.
Even Gabe, don't be. As we make our torsos disappear, Gabe is alive. So I guess it's your turn to talk about songs, I guess. Your feelings, your emotional feelings about
Where
these
did
songs.
this album touch you at, Gabe?
It's my turn. Oh.
It's so your turn. It's your turn so hard. Because our turn, we just went on like the long march without you. Our
Right.
turns occurred.
Well,
My
from
goodness.
experience, when somebody drops, we just continue on.
You
till
keep
it
going, dude.
can't-
The mission's
yeah.
too important. We just kept going. And then eventually we're like, and now we're going to see if we can pull Gabe out of the creek. Now that we've fired the mortar rounds we were supposed to. Gabe, are you alive? And Gabe is. So what do you think? Songs?
So I was not, I heard the beginning of what Tracy said, and I was not as struck by the beginning of this record. I actually wasn't as impressed by the beginning. Like the first track is a throwaway. The Chime Diabolicus, I think, is one of those ones where it's very slow and much more repetitive than some of the other cuts. So if it were slower and they could build up tension, it would work better. But what I really did dig was Blood Ornaments, Those Who
Same.
Absorb the Night. Those Who Absorb the Night actually doesn't even really pick up when it feels like the drums pick up, which is an amazing thing to do. And the melody doesn't get boring. So that's good. And then I was also Scattered into Dark. It also takes quite a while for it to get, churning, like maybe 5 minutes. But once it does, it just is pretty amazing. And the music after about it's in or so is really nice. And I also like the last tune. I think they could have used the last tune as the opener as well. I think that would have worked well.
So
The
you like
Zappa
the
cover?
cover?
You know what? Wasn't on what I heard.
Oh, yours ended at instruments?
Yep.
We this happens a lot, ladies and gentlemen. I'm
It does.
Metal. Which platform are you on?
Well, I used their Bandcamp the first time around.
Bandcamp. Got it. Which is good in some ways. There's the metrics and
Yeah, that probably actually gets them more per play, but
yeah.
I'm not sure.
So apologies. So yeah, ours ends with the cover, the Zappa cover, which Tracy hated and Ben and I thought was okay. I agree with you, Ben. Excuse me, apologies, Gabe. The Blood Ornaments through Scattered is tight. I think it's the middle of this album where it really just is just pretty powerful. I also have to say, anytime I see an 8 to 10 minute song, I'm like, God damn it! Like, are we doing this? I've like turned into Ben in my even older age, but they pull it off. Like I say that every time I see an 8-minute song, but then the song's over. That's good. Like I feel like they play well enough. There's enough variation. The pacing is just good enough that it isn't like some things that we have reviewed other weeks where I'm not, of course, not talking about the apocalyptician writer anyway, where I
Of
just
course not.
wanted to
Never
kill
talking about that
myself
album again.
halfway through the song. I'm like, I'm going to end my life because of how.
Not
the
the
other
last time this recording session that album will be brought up yet.
No, it won't. No, you are right, brother.
I was going to respond just briefly to what you said, David. Like,
Please.
but the problem with Corpus Asunder really is that there's so much musical space on that track. It's not one of the longer songs. Like they have longer songs on the record, but they really could have done more with instrumentation, with melody,
so
with
too.
harmony. There's clean singing on it, which is interesting, but it really picks up only more than halfway through, and it's not really worth the wait, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think it's the weakest of the middle songs. But you know, before you know it, suddenly Scattered in the Dark is on. It's pretty good. A lot of random bands I listen to aren't great, and so I was happy that this one was pretty good. So
yeah, I do think it's very funny that Gabe disliked the first half of the album much more than Tracy or I or David, but that's why we have you on.
that's why we have different people.
Yep. All right, time to grade this thing. I chose it, so I'm going to have to go first. So my first listen, I liked this a lot, very much a lot. Then when we got the rumors about their political affiliations, man, that bothered me quite a bit. We have landed in a space where we're just not sure. But I would be lying if I said that didn't color my subsequent listens to the album. But with that said, I still think this is a very strong album. It's a very quick album, which I like. I don't want to be here all fucking day listening to your fucking album. So if you can get me out in under an hour, under 40 minutes, I'm happy. So I'm going to give this an A-. I think it's a damn near a great album. There's a lot of the stuff that Gabe talked about the pacing on some of the tracks is a little weak. It keeps it from being anything better. But for a first listen to a band, I was very, very impressed.
I'm going to come in just below Ben. If they are indeed Nazi douchebags, they're going to go right to an F-. But right now, for me, based on this listen, it's a B+. I think it is an excellent album. It's well played. It's catchy. It's fun. I'm going to circle back to it until I hear that they're actually Nazis. It will be one of the things I think about for the best of the year. I think it's up there. I think it's good. It's a B+ for me.
I'm gonna come in along with David. It's a pretty good album. It actually grew on me the more I listened to it. So I'm gonna give it a B+ as well.
Okay, well, big surprise here. I'm gonna actually take this down to a B because I think it's got potential, but it's probably not their best work. And maybe someday, if I'm feeling up to it, I will look at another record of theirs and see what they've done before this. It has some really, really great tracks on it, but as a whole, it didn't really work for me.
Gabe, you're going to keep Hooded Menace from going to medical school.
I know.
That one B. Oh, don't worry about their other grades. That's the one grade. I'm sorry, this is some teacher.
What
one grade is the one.
What kind of teacher would I be if I didn't, buckle and change their grade when they came crying to me about it?
Exactly. That's
You'd
learning. That's
true to
consumer-centered
yourself as a
learning.
professional.
They'd have to
bullshit, because if they didn't want to be, they would have tried harder.
They would dock my pay if I didn't agree to something like that.
Well, that is a thing that teachers deal with. Tracy, what are we doing next? Something else, I'm sure.
We're looking at Ginger and their fourth album, Wallflowers.
I picked that, so I think it's a good idea because I have to. Thank you for
You
joining
don't have
us.
to. You can change your mind.
You can change your mind in degrading it. The next one, just like
you know, people are just going to tune in to find out what I
They
do.
will. They will.
They will.
Thank you for.
You did save me, David, because this was actually in my end of the year, because they go back and look at 2020 albums missed. I had this one in there for that pick.
I picked it in your honor. I only know about Hin Her because of you. So And a car, one of those car trips. I don't even remember which one. One of those times you and I were in a car.
Cincinnati.
That sounds right. Oh yeah, because Ben like abandoned us on his jetpack or whatever, like, and you and I headed south on our wagon train. Yeah, that's right. That's
So I
also
think
where
you guys were. I was heading south from Milwaukee, while you guys were heading
exactly.
east from Murray. But yeah,
I know why it happened, but it meant that I heard Caligula's horse for the first time.
I'm sorry.
I
Oh,
don't put Quigley's horse on you that time. I did.
think I
Sorry.
did.
I
think
pushed.
or maybe I'm thinking of
According
You're
to the
thinking of
records, David.
Voyager. You're thinking of
but
Voyager.
I
Go
actually like
Smile.
Voyager, whereas Caligula's horse kind of sucks. So I think like you definitely played Voyager. You also played Emperor of Sand. Is that right?
Yes.
And that I like. I swear you played some Caligula's horse, but maybe
I don't
I'm
think
just,
I did.
I'm just imagining all Tracy things like it's happening at the same time.
We had
like,
to do it such
Dr.
an intricate
Manhattan.
way for you to get it. I had to pull up Amazon Music to get it so you could hear the music because my phone would connect to your radio in the Aztec because you had that weird USB hookup connector.
I had the alarm that Ben has in his car. It was in the
Yeah.
Aztec, and then someone moved it to his car. It's alien
It's the gift
technology.
that keeps on giving. It'll be at Tracy's car next.
The thing is, if you put it near your face, it'll squirt you, Ben, and you'll slowly turn into a prawn. So don't.
Well, I
Like-
think I want that. You do not want that. But thanks for listening to Thunderdome Metal Reviews, and catch us again next time.